really giving you a snapshot of what robotics is doing and how we can apply that to agriculture. So yeah, I just give a quick background on our Centre for Robotics here at QUT, do a bit of a motivation on the state of robotics, a snapshot on what is the cool things that we're doing in robotics now and what we can sort of use that to help in agriculture, and what we're currently doing in the lab here, and some exciting things that we're sort of working on. And then I will try and wrap up with an update on the banana dehanding project. So I hope that's okay. I'm sorry if everyone was looking forward to seeing bananas being dehanded by robots. I can assure you we are doing that. I just can't show a video of it, unfortunately. So just for a bit of background, where we work, where the QUT Centre for Robotics is. So we're based in Brisbane. We work in that building there. So I'm presenting from that little building in the centre of Brisbane. But we don't just work there. We work in many different areas. We work from underwater, up in the sky, and out in the field. And so anywhere sort of people go, and sometimes where people don't go, we try and work in and get robots to work in that space. So we are a big centre, over 17 chief investigators, spanning a lot of different areas in robotics, over 14 postdocs and lots of different PhD students, and also supported by a research engineering team as well. It does a lot of our support work on helping build the robots that do the things. So what I'm particularly interested in is looking at how robots physically interact with the world, and hence why I've been helping and working with the Future Food Systems in getting robots to enable automation of labor-intensive tasks in agriculture. But the ideas and the work we've been focusing on is in sort of these 4 different areas, which is what are the different ways we can design mechanisms and actuators and the robot itself to be adaptive and rugged in these types of environments. And then also designing the perception systems or the vision systems that can handle these complex environments, handle the different multimodal environments that often we need to handle, but also the touch and feel of when we interact with the environment. And sometimes this is a very occluded environment. So the visual, the leaves, the branches can really block what the robot can see. And we are really trying to enable robots to do that. And how do we get robots to do that under these highly occluded scenes? We also try and do this in real time. So humans do this really easily. They do this in real time, and we need robots to be able to do that as well, so that they can do these tasks efficiently. And then making good decisions. So getting the robot to have common sense, to do this in a way that is context aware, can reason about what it's seeing, and even learn from that environment as well. So these are all the challenges that we are trying to address in getting robots to automate tasks in agriculture. And we are trying to do this across the lab. And we're asking questions around how do we represent the world in a robot? How do we control these forces when the robot interacts with the world? And how do we not break the world and break the robot when it interacts with the world as well? So we've been looking at designing of different soft robots, different robots that have variable stiffness when interacting with the world, just like humans do naturally, inherently. And then addressing those environmental challenges that I mentioned. So like the 5 main ones that we're trying to address is an unstructured world. So an agricultural world is very unstructured. We can't model it with we can't measure it exactly in meters and centimeters. Plants grow in very different ways, and we can't have a pre-built model of that. It deforms. So this is my biggest area of problem challenges with robots is as the robot interacts with a plant, it moves, and we have to handle that deformation. And then also when it interacts with either fruit, the fruit itself deforms as well. And then dynamics. So as it moves, or the thing moves, so the plants move as we interact, and we need to handle how that movement occurs and how a robot interacts with it while it's moving. Then the physical and visual, like clutters and occlusions. So tight spaces, getting robots to work in these environments is really difficult physically, but then also visually, things are blocking the world. So I like to come down to this this paradox in the world of robotics, and we see it time and time again. But there's this paradox called Moravec's paradox, which is what is easy for humans is often hard for robots, and what is hard for humans can often be easy for robotics. And so we're into this tipping point where we're trying to address these easy tasks that humans can do, like picking fruit or dehanding bananas, and really trying to tackle, well, why do we experience this paradox? Why is it so hard for a robot to fold clothes or to pick fruit when we can get a robot to beat the world champion in chess? And it's just a different problem, and it's a very interesting paradox. But before I sort of do a deep dive, I kind of wanted to give a quick snapshot of where robotics is moving, specifically around robot arms, robot grasping systems, and how robots are interacting with the world. And I don't know if everyone's heard about this process, but we're seeing everything from Gen AI come into robotics now. So all the really cool state-of-the-art in generative imagery or videos is we're now learning from that and using that in robotics. And essentially that process is called diffusion. What we're doing is we're using noise we're adding noise to our data and then trying to train a model to effectively denoise that. So an example of this is a diffusion policy that starts from a noisy cloud and denoises it to a spiral pattern. And so we are utilizing that in robotics quite a lot to get robots to move through the world effectively. But everyone's probably seen it in this form, where we've asked Gen AI to create pictures of cats or to ask it to create things. But essentially it's doing it from a noisy starting point. And so we are also getting robotics to ask that same question, starting from a noise or starting from zero, please generate a movement for me. Instead of an image, it's also generating the motion. And so there's some examples on the left here of architectures, models that are being deployed in robots to get them to use diffusion in this way to move through the world. And interestingly, it's working. So we're seeing a lot of really cool results now where we're getting what they call diffusion policies to train robots to do these easy tasks in that paradox. So tasks like folding clothes, because a human can demonstrate that relatively easily, we can use that data and we can use diffusion to train a robot to replicate or clone that behavior. So this is some really cool results, and we're seeing a wave of research being done in this space to get some really cool outcomes. And so this is another example here of also doing that same thing, but for more of a grasping task with different types of hands and for different types of objects. And so we're seeing a bit more robustness in this space. What the challenge is in this is it's not a silver bullet. We need to train these systems. We need to have lots and lots of data collection, like what Gen AI is doing in trained off internet scale data. We don't have internet scale data for robotics, but we are trying. So that's another thing to think about, is how we build up big data sets. So that's just a quick snapshot of what we're seeing in robotics, and we're trying to take some of that, and I'm trying to take some of that and apply it to agriculture. So I'm not directly using diffusion just yet. Some of my PhD students are investigating it, but we are being inspired by that. So moving more specifically into agriculture, I've been working in this space for a number of years now, trying to help improve problems such as the challenges from manual labor. So this is the motivation around here is trying to reduce cost, improve the quality of labor or tasks in agriculture, and trying to help address availability and safety concerns. And so for those who haven't seen some of our previous work, we've been focusing on different tasks like fruit harvesting. So here are some examples of our capsicum harvester that we did a number of years ago, and recently our strawberry and tomato harvester in our vertical farming system at QUT. And one of our projects with the Future Food Systems CRC, a previous one, in tomato pollination down the bottom right. So looking at working with an industry partner, Perpetual, in pollinating tomatoes using a robotic vehicle, a ground-based vehicle that can maneuver on and off greenhouse bike rails. So that's just to give you a brief background and state of the art on what's happening in research in robotics. I wanted to give you a snapshot of some of the work that we're doing in the lab to try and address some of these challenging problems that we're seeing in the environment. So one of the recent PhD students is researching how do we get robots to reach into dense foliage or dense cluttered environments. And so this is trying to emulate how humans complete this task by feeling the sense of feeling. And as a human reaches through a bush or a plant, they use the feedback on their skin and the senses to feel their way through. So this, so Nadi is looking into using tactile sensors. So these are an array of touch sensors on the end of the robot to feel its way through the plant, and using an algorithm called this RICE controller, reactive based controller, to feel the way through. And any of this research that I've sort of talk about today, happy to share more if anyone's interested. We have papers to sort of share the internal workings of this research. It's an example of the results and the video here. So even though it's working at a sort of a slow pace at the moment, we're aiming to speed that up. We can see it's demonstrating the ability to touch and feel. So what you can see here, if you focus on this area, is actually sensing that small branch and then maneuvering around that branch to get to the fruit. And so she's done a lot of experiments to compare and contrast a baseline model, which is just like naively don't use the sense of touch, to using that sense of touch to move through the plant environment. And as I alluded to before, we are now investigating how to improve this method using the idea of diffusion. So training this from human demonstrations, using that sense of touch and diffusing the data and learning from that diffusion process to enable robots to do a more robust feeling through the plant while trying to harvest. One of the other areas we've been focusing on is the cannabis industry. So we've been looking at problems in trying to prune leaves in cannabis. And what you see here is work by Quinlan, who's been looking at trying to get key point detection of the pruning points for a cannabis plant. And so what he's been working on is building up 3D models of the plant, and then based on previous skeleton ground truth data, estimating where those key points are, and therefore can enable the robot to go to those locations. And he's got some recent results. I'm not going to talk through specifically, but he's been able to show that he can build up those key points quite effectively from a 3D reconstruction of the plant. And so some sort of examples down the bottom is a construction of the skeleton and just highlights of some of the errors of how the skeleton matches a ground truth model. He's also been using this type of work to build up deformable models. So looking at trying to handle deformation or modeling the deformability of a plant. He's been looking at using that skeleton and attaching physics or physics models to that skeleton that can then deform in a simulator, and we can ask certain questions about how can we maneuver our robot into this plant to measure or complete that pruning task. So this work is really to build up all of the key subsystems to be able to get to cannabis pruning. And the last part he's been working on is actually the design of the tool itself. So he's been going to real cannabis greenhouses and testing the ideas of different types of pruning tools. And so he had a comparative experiment and showed that a vacuum system was quite effective in removing the leaves if you can give it the right key points to go to. So that work's been wrapping up now in Quinlan's PhD. And just a few last research projects that we've had, just to give you a snapshot. We've been working on the visual occlusion problem of trying to find or fill out fruits that we can't see behind leaves or that are partially visible. So we've been trying to use 3D reconstruction methods and models to complete the 3D gap. So if we can't see a fruit fully in 3D, we can then fill the remaining parts, and that gives us a better estimate of where to go and grasp. And then we've shown that if we use a vertical farming as a test platform, we can improve the harvesting success rates if we know exactly where the fruit is in the world. And so just a few other projects that we've been working on is the physical interaction problem of how we actually grasp and what we actually grasp with to collect fruit. We've been really trying to look at different ways to design the fingertips, and we've been investigating soft actuators or soft robots, which can easily deform around the fruit. But one key challenge is actually being able to vary the stiffness of that soft body. And so we've been investigating different ways to inflate or deflate these actuators and then stiffen them so they can grasp the fruit or pull the fruit off the plant effectively. And then finally, just one other research project we've been focusing on is doing this dynamically. So robots, we need to do tasks in agriculture quite efficiently. And to do that well, we need to do that on the move. So as robots move around the environment, we don't want them to stop. We essentially don't want them to be robotic in the sense of a movie robotic nature, where a robot would stop, stand still, pick the fruit, and then move on. So we've been investigating how to get robots to move through the world and grasp while on the move. Really just to tackle all of those challenges that robotics has when trying to work in these difficult environments. I'm happy to sort of answer any questions around these different research projects, but that's to really give you a snapshot of the work we've been doing in the lab, focusing on these problems in agriculture. And what I'd like to do with just the remaining time I have, I think I'm almost out of time. I would like to give you a quick snapshot, which is a similar update to what we did at the start of the year on our banana dehanding project. So this project is a 2-year project funded by the Future Food Systems CRC with funding support from Hort Innovation, the Australian Farm Robotics, and with the support of the ABGC, or the Australian Banana Growers Council, as well. And the idea is to develop a banana dehanding robot that can effectively remove hands off the stalk in the banana processing shed. And the idea is to focus on one of these tasks in the banana harvest operations or post-harvest operations, mainly because it's quite a labor-intensive but risky and essentially an OH&S problem as well, because a lot of injuries occur with this banana dehanding. And enabling this or working on this problem also then sort of has a lot of value in the remaining post-harvest operations. This is an example of banana dehanding currently being done. As you see, it's using a sharp knife to remove hands off the stalk. It's quite repetitive, very labor-intensive, and there's no current commercial mechanical solution. So our thought was that robotics will be able to, well, can enable this to be done autonomously. And really the benefits are to be consistent in cutting, reduce fatigue or remove fatigue from human labor, reduce disease spread, as well as being able to integrate with the remaining packing processes. So I've probably alluded to all the challenges, but a lot of the challenges the robots face with this problem is how to handle the natural variation of the fruit, how to do the precise cutting so we get the quality of the cut, how to protect the fruit from bruises when you remove it, and do it at a high throughput. So the project is separated into 4 main packages: the cutting tool, the vision system, the full testing station, and then the demonstration portion of this. So we're currently moving into the 4th phase, which is looking at the robotic de-handing demonstration. So there's some really cool, exciting stuff that I'd love to share. Once that patent process has been completed, I will be able to share this in more detail. But just to give you a snapshot of what we've achieved so far, we've gone through a design process where we had growers' workshops, getting their input into the design concepts, and really working through what needs to happen with a robot to de-hand these bananas. And we came up with this problem statement. Based on time, I won't go straight into it, but it needs to be affordable. It needs to handle failures gracefully, potentially sort and grade and monitor the bananas. It needs to cut the bananas is the main one, protect the bananas when cutting it, and also integrate into the shed. So this is something I presented earlier in the year, but we've been working on different prototypes for the end effector, for how we cut the hands off the stalk, and we've been designing that and testing those. And we have a good design now that I'd love to share, but I can't, unfortunately. And then we've also been completing the vision and cutting motion planner system. So this is combining where the hand is using vision and using our sort of current state-of-the-art in vision models to find where we need to cut, and then using an algorithm to tell the robot to execute the cut in 3D space. So what we've also we've completed since the start of the year is we've been building a testing station. And so this is a fully sized, fully built testing station that's based at the ARM hub, or the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing hub. And it's ready to go to basically move into our demonstration phase, where we can demonstrate the working de-handing system and do a performance analysis of it so we can feed it into the next phase. So there is some highlights here. These are some examples of hands of bananas that have been de-handed by a robot. So I think maybe first in the world of hands that have been removed by a robot. There is some potential issues here that we have addressed since then, but just about the quality of cut. And that's about improving the cutting tool, improving the motion planner, and the vision system in combination. So what's next for this project? As I mentioned, we are in this 4th phase now, where we are evaluating the system and getting some really good performance analysis out of it. So we are aiming to get a success rate. What's the speed? What's the quality? And then we want to organize demonstrations to industry. So we're really keen on bringing the banana growers to Brisbane and seeing this live. And then we're really interested in exploring the commercial pathways. So looking at how we can translate this from this research project to a commercial system from the findings of the project. But what about the future? Just to sort of wrap up, we've got a bit of an exciting new robot in the lab, and it just brings this idea of what the potential future for robotics looks like. And my thoughts go to, are we now moving into a next phase where humanoid robots could be useful in agriculture? So this is our brand new humanoid robot at QUT, or at the QUT Centre for Robotics. So out of the box comes with all the control system and the ability to walk and maneuver around the world. My issue with this is it does not have the ability to grasp fruit or pick or harvest fruit. It also won't work outdoors just yet. So I do think that this is the part of the future for robotics. Out of the box, humanoids are a thing now, and they're relatively cheap. So this was about 30 grand in robotic speak. That's pretty cheap. It just does not have that capability to grasp and physically interact with the world just yet. So that is what a snapshot of the robotics research and an update on the banana dehanding project. So I'd like to finish there by thanking all the team members who are part of the banana dehanding project and our industry partners.